We have a good talk for you tonight with two speakers. Some of you probably know both of these people, or if you don't, you'll know them by the end of the talk. Kerry Wixted is a native Marylander with over 15 years experience studying Maryland's flora and fauna. She holds a BS degree in wildlife and fisheries management from Frostburg State University and a master's degree in biology from West Virginia University. She worked for the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. And I'm sure there's like a ton more that she could have put on that. Dominic goes by Dom. That's why we put it in there. He has 3 decades of experience in natural resources management, land planning, and land acquisition for the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Prince George's County Department of Parks and Rec. He authored the Serpentine Barrens Conservation Park Master Plan, co-authored the Wheaton Regional Park Master Plan, and the acquisition of, coordinated the acquisition of Fairland Conservation Park, the Royce Hanson Conservation Park, and the Charles Branch Conservation Park. He's a graduate of Frostburg State University, holds a American Planning Association certification, certified arborist, and he's a Maryland Department of Natural Resources appointed Montgomery County Forestry Board member. And he says at the end, he's a recovering ultra-marathoner. And he enjoys walking with his family and dogs, Olive and Chewy. I love those names. He's equally at home in deep woods or an Italian Trattoria. You're making me hungry. So welcome to both Dom and Kerry. I think Dom's going to go first and then Kerry. So take it away.
Thanks, Jill. Dominic Quattrocchi, and I'll be tag teaming with Kerry Wixted. And it's an honor to present to the Maryland Native Plant Society. This is such a great group. Serendipitously, Kerry and I are both very excited to be presenting to the Maryland Native Plant Society on Maryland Day, which is today, March 25th. Kerry and I are both native Marylanders. Other than Kerry attending graduate school at West Virginia University and me doing a stint in the U.S. Coast Guard, we have been Marylanders our entire lives. And we're both big Maryland fans. One of my first conversations with Kerry, I realized we both love the moniker, the motto, America in miniature, to describe Maryland, because it's so apt. Maryland, though a small state, the 7th smallest state in the Union, there's so much to offer. You know, you're a short drive from the mountains, from the Atlantic Ocean. In between, you've got the largest estuary in the United States in the Chesapeake Bay, 4 physiographic provinces. You know, as far as plant communities, generally speaking, Maryland's kind of the northernmost extent of southern vegetation, the southernmost extent of northern vegetation. You have diverse people, culture, a rich, long American history in Maryland. So just wanted to sort of point that out. Quickly, the agenda. We're going to go over what is the Maryland National Capital Park Planning Commission. Kerry's going to talk about special protection areas, best natural areas, biodiversity areas. We're going to give a quick refresher of the Patuxent River watershed, because the property that we're primarily speaking about tonight, the Charles Branch Conservation Park, is in the Patuxent River watershed. Kerry's going to give a nice photo tour, and then we'll wrap it up. The Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, established in 1927. We're almost 100 years old. The commission has planning and development review authority and is in charge of parks for both Montgomery's and Prince George's County. In Prince George's County, also recreation. That differs than Montgomery County because the rec department in Montgomery County is under the county executive. The commission was federally conceived, state chartered, and it is locally funded at the county level. The intent was to basically have complementary developments for the Maryland counties adjacent to our nation's capital, and smartly, wisely administering developments in accordance with the general plan of 64 that was most recently up, or that will be updated as part of Plan 2035. The commission serves 2 million residents, kind of equally divided between Montgomery and Prince George's County. I think most exciting to this group is the commission manages, maintains, owns about 75,000 acres of parkland between the two counties, diverse assemblages of parks and facilities.
Excited to be here, just like Dom, and being part of MNC PPC. And with much of our parkland in, like so much of our parkland in our purview, it's important to examine what areas are our core natural areas or best natural areas. So these areas include places that exemplify high quality natural features, from habitat types to rare, threatened, and endangered species, or those that are close to being on those lists. High quality wetland habitats and aquatic communities, and essentially, these areas that are the best of the best within the parklands. So these are the criteria that Montgomery County Parks sets aside for their best natural areas. And in Montgomery County, they have 13 best natural areas identified. You might recognize a few on the list because quite a few Maryland Native Plant Society field trips visit these different places, and I've certainly gone to these places in those trips as well. So so these are, the 13 main best natural areas, and then there are smaller areas that are also ecologically important, and those are considered to be the biodiversity areas. In addition, this map also shows the MNC PPC parkland that Montgomery Parks manages, as well as other types of public park property that's found across the state. And so you see this really cool network of places that are available for public usage, but also for natural resource management. And among these different natural areas, we also have some major terrestrial natural communities. And these are communities that you will find in Montgomery County. Much of them are represented in those best natural areas, mixed forest on serpentine bedrocks, and there's some diabase forests and things of that nature. So if you're looking to go out and botanize and really nature nerd and see some cool plants, check out those best natural areas. A lot of these natural communities that have been identified, the community types are very similar to the ones called Maryland Key Wildlife Habitats that have been identified in the Maryland State Wildlife Action Plan, aka the SWAP, which is in current revision for 2025. So in Prince George's County, where Dom and I work, we have special conservation areas, and we also have 13 areas identified. And so these areas are a mix of different properties. If you look down the list, there are the ones that are in black font. Those are ones that are not managed by MNC PPC. And the ones that are in orange are those that we manage parts of it. So we have some parklands or other assets in those systems, and then the ones in green are the ones we entirely manage ourselves. And so I will preface this with this under construction here, just because we're in the process of re-examining these special conservation areas. I was recently hired as a vegetation ecologist, and Dom and I are a part of a new section, the environmental stewardship section. So we're going to be looking at these different habitats found across Prince George's County and trying to identify some of those high quality habitats, very similar to how Montgomery County has done it. So if you're not familiar with some of these habitats over on the Prince George's side, I'm going to start with one of my favorites, which is Suitland Bog. And this is definitely a favorite of a lot of folks on the Maryland Native Plant Society field trips. So Suitland Bog Conservation Area is a 60-acre protected area, and we're really fortunate. Two of the people who have been integral in its management over the years, Lisa and Chris Garrett, are on the line, so they can answer some questions for you if you have it about this area. But Suitland Bog represents Magnolia Bog. It's a rare terraced seepage wetland. And technically it's not a bog, it's actually a fen, but we'll go with it and call it a bog. And essentially, it's one of the best remaining habitats within this complex of wetlands that used to be found across Prince George's County in that fall line area. So we have this amazing little protected spot. There are over 15 rare, threatened, and endangered species that are supported. Most of them are plants. If you go out there in May, you'll get to see some beautiful things like the rose pogonia orchid that you see there. You can walk on the small boardwalk through the wetland, and it's just a really, really cool natural community. Just keep an eye out for the poison sumac, which does also grow along the boardwalk, and say hi to the pitcher plants, which have been planted in the bog but are managed in that area. So it's a really, really fascinating spot that definitely deserves attention as one of those special conservation areas. We also have Watkins Regional Park. And so this technically isn't one of our special natural areas, but it's close enough to Belt Woods, which has been identified. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Watkins Regional Park, it's kind of in the center of the county by Largo and that area. And this was formerly owned by Seton Belt. So Seton Belt was a 17th century settler, or sorry, he descended from 17th century settlers, and he owns 3,200 acres across 6 farms in the county. So he's a significant landholder in the county. And so eventually Belt Woods became, essentially was protected and conserved by the Department of Natural Resources. And it's an old growth forest right there in the middle of Prince George's County. But some of that land also was owned by him that now became Watkins Regional Park. And we still see pockets of those old growth, those really large trees there in Watkins Regional Park, particularly by the Nature Center, which is a really cool place to visit anytime with anyone. And we also have an ephemeral wonderland. So I'm so happy that that we have folks who are on the call that are going to be giving the hike, Janet and her hike at the end of March, to go see this place, because it's a great spot to see the common ephemeral wildflowers, but you can also see things like this globally rare Cobalt Specilia, which is pictured on the screen. So in addition to those natural spots, there's all sorts of other things to do, like everything. You can essentially do everything at Watkins Regional Park. You can hike, you can bike, you can camp, you can visit the farm, you can go visit a world-class Wizard of Oz playgrounds. And even the habitat, the western branch of the Patuxent, runs through a section of the park, and it supports rare fish species like the American brook lamprey and a few other species. So it's just a really, really cool spot, and definitely is going to be one of our special conservation areas when we update the list. Jug Bay Natural Area is another one of our special conservation areas, and this is on the Prince George's side of the Patuxent, so on the western side of Patuxent. It's part of Patuxent River Park, which is a large complex that M&C PPC manages. So this is a beautiful spot. There's canoe and kayak access right there to the Patuxent, so you can visit that wild rice marsh and see some of these amazing sights. It's good to get out there in the summertime. There also is the Black Walnut area that unfortunately the boardwalk is currently closed, but it's a nice spot to kind of go out and see the marshlands and everything. You'll see rare species. In September, you can see the state threatened red turtlehead there along the boardwalk. You can also see different types of orchids, both rare and common orchids in those wetland systems. Ragged fringe. This picture is actually from the Jug Bay Natural Area several years ago. So it's a really good spot to visit just about any time of year. And in addition, it has things like the Patuxent Rural Life Museum, and a really nice nature center too. So now I'm going to kick it over to Dom, and he's going to talk about the Patuxent watershed, which is part of, which includes the Patuxent River Park.
Thanks, Kerry. Yeah, we're going to be zooming down to the site that we're going to be talking about in more detail shortly. But a quick overview of the Patuxent River and the Patuxent watershed. I'm sure a lot of people on this call live within the Patuxent watershed. It is Maryland's largest, longest, and deepest river, entirely within the state. It encompasses portions of 7 Maryland counties. It's almost 1,000 square miles, the drainage area. A fact that I love, if you look at sort of the map illustration, it is like perfectly centered between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore City. So as a result, it's a short drive for so many people. So it's just an important, critical cultural and recreational and habitat amenity and resource for so many people. About 95,000 acres of the watershed is protected as parkland or through conservation easements, and that includes, the state, the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, WSSC, and other public entities as well. It is a state designated scenic and wild river. The lower left photo shows kind of the expansive tidal marsh over by the Jug Bay area. This is taken from the Mount Calvert Mansion, beautiful plateau overlooking this area. It's one of my favorite beauty spots, if not my favorite beauty spot in Prince George's County. You go there during proper times of year, you'll see eagles flying, osprey. It's very popular for fishermen, kayakers. It's just a great resource. Very close to most of us on this call. Just a quick update. The Patuxent River Watershed Master Plan, the Commission is starting to update the master plan that was last approved in 1982. So anyone that's interested in providing commentary or sort of being part of the master plan update process, we plan on working on this update over the next 2 to 3 years. The Charles Branch Conservation Park. This slide here in the lower left, the large yellow area, is the Charles Branch Conservation Park. And you can sort of see its proximity relative to the main stem of the Patuxent River on the east of the map, the existing park properties. I should give a shout out on the Anne Arundel County side. I know Karen Molinas is on the call. There's lots of great parkland on the Anne Arundel County side as well. So it's just a very rich area of lots of park acreage in this general area. I'll just make a shout out. We acquired Charles Branch Conservation Park about a year ago, and at about the same time, we also acquired the Chew property, which is in the center of the map. That's another sort of just gem forested resource, lots of wetlands along the Western Branch. The Park and Planning Commission has a active acquisition program. So we just wanted to give a shout out to that as well. So this is the Charles Branch Conservation Park. In the light green outline, you can sort of see the park. Basically, Croom Road forms, generally the eastern border of the acquisition. Dooley Station Road, the south, to the west, where you see the power lines, there is a at-grade rail line that's essentially the western boundary. To the west, just off site of the map, would be the Route 301 corridor. Existing Marlton Park is just to the north. Do note that there appears to be a hole in the donut. That's also forested property. That's owned by the Board of Education in Prince George's County. It's essentially a paperwork exercise. We're going to acquire that as well. There are some additional acquisitions that we hope to make to increase the size of Charles Branch Conservation Park. But this is what it generally looks like. Wanted to show folks a series of aerial photographs from left to right, 1938, center 1979, and the right 1990. You can see the conservation park outlined. In 1938, about half of it was forested, and it was pretty mature forest at that time. You can see sort of a core area to the right side, and then the stream valley, the perennial stream valley on the west side was also forested, and intermixed was tobacco farm fields. But you can see by 1970, those fields were largely abandoned and starting to fill in. And then by 1990, pretty much the entire 537 plus acres was forested, and that's going back 35 years. So today, you've got a really good, unfragmented, large interior forest. Just an aerial photograph that sort of shows the same aerial photograph, U.S. Geologic Survey topographic quad from 1965, generally showing the same area. You can sort of see the core large area of intact forest in 65. Lots of topography on this site. We'll show you some photos on our photo tour that will exemplify how tortuously wonderful the topography is on this site. Lots of intermittent and ephemeral swales and seeps. And you have the southwest branch of the Charles Branch on the west side as well. I'll just make a plug. USGS quads are just such a great resource. They're online, and because they were revised and updated, for most quads over a period of like 80, 90 years, if you ever want to look at land use changes or get an idea or a reference of how old a complex is, or what the botanical possibilities might be relative to sort of impacts and changes, look at the USGS quadrangles that are available online. It's just a great snapshot over time. Okay, real quick, the property history. Obviously, there was a lot of indigenous use of this area. We have a staff archaeologist that's going to be doing work out there as we sort of like update and reconnoiter the property now that we own it as part of the master plan. The property was an agricultural production for many decades, primarily the Claggett family. There is the historic Claggett family cemetery on the property. For over 30 years, the property had approved development plans with multiple extensions. So this property was at risk of developments. I'll show you the approved development plan shortly. Because of access and startup cost issues to develop the property, it never developed, it never moved forward. Don Pleasance gifted the property to the Girl Scouts in 2021. And shortly thereafter, the commission got wind that the Girl Scouts were attempting to market this property back to the development community. And because of that, we entered into negotiations with the Girl Scouts to acquire the property at fair market value as a fee simple acquisition to acquire the property as a conservation park. Those negotiations went on about 2 years, and fortunately, we were able to acquire about 90% of the Girl Scout holdings last January. And just a shout out to the state's visionaries, the program Open Space Program, which started in 1969, setting aside funding available to allow counties to make important purchases like this. This acquisition did win the Washington Business Journal's Community Impact Award recently. And as I said before, we are working to acquire contiguous properties to sort of expand this conservation park complex. So here is what was on the books for many decades as far as developments. I think you'll notice most strikingly, the core area of the oldest forest was completely lotted out. Had this come to fruition, you wouldn't have essentially a square mile of largely terrestrial forest available, but you would have lost most of that, and you would have retained kind of a core narrow area of riparian forest along the Charles Branch, very little else. So we were very excited to make this acquisition happen. Significance, this was the largest privately, singly owned forest left in Prince George's County. Our initial reconnaissance and work, about 250 acres of the 537 acres is really high quality forest bordering on sort of old growth forest. The Maryland State DNR Green Print program has valued the property, just letting the forest grow and provide its environmental services at about $1.1 billion a year in value. Obviously, this acquisition preserves very important habitat and the rural character and historic resources associated with the Croom Marlton area. Just this acquisition alone accounts for about 2.5% of the commission's parkland in Prince George's County. The quote below I will read because this really kind of emphasizes how important or how jazzed we were to sort of make this acquisition happen. The commission's been around since 27. Most of our parkland is stream valley floodplain areas that were dedicated as part of the development review process, or that were picked up at lower cost because those areas, those low-lying floodplain constrained areas, didn't cost a lot of money relative to terrestrial environments to acquire. And I think this quote's from 1993, DNR, I think from Kathy McCarthy, but I'm not certain on that. Given the Commission's primary emphasis on stream valley acquisitions over the last 80 years, this was in 1993, a serious shortage of quality upland forest acreage in the Commission system has resulted. Upland forest should be afforded additional considerations for public ownership and protection. So, we really checked the box on that one. And I think the next slide will help show that as well. Okay, this is just another aerial image. You can see the Patuxent River. Advance that, I think there's some animation. Okay, so there is the Charles Branch Complex, the inset map on the left. And again, on the right, that is the Patuxent River Jug Bay Complex. In yellow, this is such a intact, kind of critical greenway hydrologic corridor that connects this Charles Branch Forest to the Western Branch, to the Patuxent River, to Jug Bay via the corridor that's in yellow. And fortunately, much of what's in the yellow corridor is already parkland or extensive wetland areas that aren't going to develop, that will at some point pick up. So you make this great connection between a terrestrial environment and the riparian environment and the riverine environment of the Patuxent River, helping to sort of maintain water quality, habitat, and things that we're all very interested and focused on. So it is a conservation park, and any development that we're going to do is going to be limited to natural surface trails and maybe some limited trailhead parking. And we're working through that right now. I know Chris Garrett's on the call. I don't know if he wants to chime in at any point, but he's been doing yeoman's work, laying out trails thoughtfully to, for low impact, and to create a system that's really going to get park users in there to sort of enjoy this complex. And we're hoping this fall to open about 5 of probably a 10-acre trail system in this complex. That gives you an idea of how big Charles Branch Conservation Park is. And this is just a map of some of the initial trail planning that we're doing, with parking areas off of Prume Road and Dupley Station Road. I should mention that the western edge of the property is bordered by a rail line that we believe is going to go defunct. I don't know if that's going to be 5 years, 20 years, but that will provide a fabulous rails to trails regional corridor that will provide additional access and interest by the public in the Charles Branch Conservation Park. And there's Chris Garrett in the inset next to a large loblolly pine. Now for the fun part, Kerry Wixted is going to take us on a photo tour. This is a photo mosaic of a lot of aerial images. And from this image alone, you can sort of see all the deep ravines and topography associated with this large complex forest.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. So while the area isn't open to the public just yet, we're excited to kind of give you some glimpses of the different habitats that are found within the Charles Branch Conservation Area, and show you some of the sites that we've seen while we were out with Ranger Chris Garrett, kind of testing out some of these beautiful trails that he's really doing a great job at implementing there in the park. So, as Dom mentioned earlier, there's some nice topography there for it being the coastal plain and all of that. And there's some very scenic vistas that overlook parts of the Southwestern Branch. And so this is just an example of one of the shots, looking through the trees and seeing out to those different areas. The area has intermittent streams and also some temporary vernal pool habitat. So it supports a diverse assemblage of our amphibian friends, including things like spotted salamanders and a few other species, and as well as our reptile friends too. And it also has a ton of orchid species. So this is a putty root orchid here. And I was just really impressed how much I saw in terms of putty root while I was out there a month ago. It's not a species of orchid that I see a lot on the coastal plain. So here's an example with some of our planters out there. You'll see a mixture of this beech forest and all of that, but you have some of these really big trees that punctate the landscape. You can see some of that topography and all of that. And the understory in many sections is devoid of a lot of those invasive plants that we would normally see. But unfortunately, there are some in sections, particularly the areas that were previously farmed. There's also this giant tulip poplar. And so I forget, I don't know if anybody has gotten the DBH yet, but there's our crew right up there. So there's Chris, that's Mary Jo Kister, there's myself and Don Herring. And we're all standing on top of this giant with this amazing root mass. And then when Dom took the picture from down below, I looked at it and I was like, oh, there's somebody living in that tree too. So there's a lot of wildlife that's utilizing this area. And this isn't the only big tree that you'll get a chance to see once you get to the site. So here's some more pictures of just that beautiful coastal plain forest. You know, it's just a wonderful example of it. And there are patches, really large patches of the club mosses, the running club moss and the tree club moss that you can see in different areas. And those are nice indicators of that high quality forest that hasn't been disturbed in a long time. So, you know, being the first time I was out there, I saw this like distant patch of green on the ground and I was like, oh, is that periwinkle? And I like went up to it. I was just so happy to not see a giant patch of invasive plants and to see all the club mosses on the ground. As I alluded, there's a number of orchids that are there, and some of this is probably thanks to the deer management that has been occurring on the site. So there are putty root orchids, there are cranefly orchids, there are showy orchis, this species right here, and some pink lady slippers. So a nice assemblage of orchids that have been found in that system, and just kind of gives you an idea of how nice that forest is and what it's supporting. There's some beautiful streams as well. So this is one of those stream cuts, those intermittent streams that you can see, nice gravelly textured sand and all of that. And that brook lamprey, the picture that I showed you earlier from Watkins Regional Park, this is likely a spot that they would also breed in this nice gravelly coastal plain soil that you would see in those stream habitats. So it's just a lovely spot to visit and see. And then these are just some pictures of some of the vernal pools, and there's the upland burrowing crayfish that you can see, and like abundance of ferns and little seepages all around. And the Turk's cap lily isn't on the official property, but it's on one of the adjacent properties. So it's just a teaser of other things that are in this area that are being protected by the commission. And then we've got our big trees. So we have Ranger Chris Garrett there with a nice big old pine tree, and then folks on our team measuring one of the giant beeches in there. And so the area that is slated for the first round of trails that are going to be put in, those natural surface trails, will likely take you to some of these big tree spots and some of that nicer forest area in the northern portion of the property. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Some of the areas have been previously farmed, and we do see evidence of that at the property. So there's Dom from our trip back in March, end of February, and this is a really large eastern red cedar. So this is along a former farm road that cut through the property, and you can see some of the evidence of that with the younger growth forests. And then unfortunately, these are where those invasives come in, like the autumn olive and the barberry and all the other usual cast of characters that you will see in there. So as we get going with management on this site, I am definitely going to be doing some invasive plant work days out there. So I'm just going to seed that thought into your minds if you want to come out and help out with tackling some of these invasive plants sometime in the future. And I'm going to hand it over to Dom to finish it up.
Oh, thanks, Terry. That's just a trail camera image of turkey. We've seen lots of turkey out there, lots of other interesting animals, including bald eagle. It's just great habitat. We're looking forward to doing continued assessments of what's out there as we start master planning the property. Just a couple other representative photos. There is the rail line that basically forms the western boundary. It goes down to Chalk Point. Very little usage, and we believe that it's going to be going away in relatively short order. So we think that's going to be a great sort of trail corridor and open this up for additional interest as well. This is an image I really like. This is basically at the northern point terminus of the property looking south, and you can sort of see the complexity of the forest canopy, how unbroken, unfragmented, and how expansive the forested area is. In the foreground, that is a softball field at Marlton Neighborhood Park, which is also kind of a good place to sort of like park with friends to sort of, find your way into the Charles Branch Conservation Park. We'll begin to wrap this up. Again, we're going to be doing additional field work as part of the master planning process. We're hoping to have some of the trails available as early as this fall for the public. And can't emphasize enough, get out there, explore, botanize, tell us what you see, let us know. We're going to provide our contact information, and kind of jokingly, you never know what you might see. Those zebra are actually on the Charles Branch Conservation Park property. You may remember, I would say like 4 years ago or so, there were wild zebras in Prince George's County running amok for several weeks that generated a lot of interest. They came from an adjacent property and spent quite a bit of time on what became the Charles Branch Conservation Park. Want to shout out kudos to program Open Space again. When this went to the State Board of Public Works, Governor Westmore actually called out this property specifically, which doesn't typically happen. And he basically said, that the acquisition of 537 acres to add to the Charles Branch Stream Valley system will permanently preserve this land for conservation and enjoyment and benefit of generations of Marylanders and Prince Georgians. Very excited to advance the project for Prince Georgians. So we thought that was pretty cool. Let us know what you see out there. It should be open, in relatively short order for public use. And, side note, if you have any sort of like acquisition tips for us or any areas that are in need of management in Prince George's County within the park system, give Kerry and me a shout. There is our contact information. And with that, we were thrilled to present this to you. We're very excited about this project. Thank you.
Thank you both. That was excellent. I can't wait to get out there. And thanks for all the work that you've both done to get things like this protected, and you're still working on it. So thank you so much. I could ask a really quick question because other parks in that general area, when I've been out walking, I've noticed, sadly, a lot of wavy leaf basket grass is coming in, and it breaks my heart because I'll think, oh my God, this is such a nice forest. Oh, what's that? And there are a lot of bikers using the trails, and I wondered if that might be one way some of the wavy leaf is getting in. But do you have some ideas for how to prevent or get really good scouting so the minute that stuff shows up, so it doesn't turn into a wavy leaf basket great wasteland? I don't want to say wasteland, but you know what I mean. It's so annoying to see it, and it spreads so far.
Kerry, you probably want to take that question. I'll start off by saying I have not seen wavy leaf basket grass in this forest complex. That's not to say that it's not coming, because I see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is there. I think Ranger Chris Garrett, who's on the call, has spent a lot of time out there, and I think he mentioned that he saw some wavy leaf. There definitely is some stilt grass that I saw, when we were out there doing our hike a month ago to look at some of those spots. So, Chris, do you want to pop in about the wavy leaf?
Yeah, I can pop in on that. First of all, I just want to dispel the idea that the bikes are the ones that are spreading wavy leaf around. I'm just going to put that out there because this park does have wavy leaf in it. It has it in various situations, and no bike wheel has ever touched this place.
Okay.
So I'm just going to put that out there. I've also been in places where there's plenty of wavy leaf. I'm just going to defend the bikes for a second, and no bike has ever been. It's mostly just been hikers and bird watchers and things like that. So I'm just going to put that out there. It's easy for wavy leaf to get on people's socks and shoes and pants, and people spread it around without people knowing it. I've seen a couple of questions in here, and I'm just going to put it out. We're working on right now. We're working through parking lots, so the place really isn't open until we can get some kind of parking access. So we're trying to get that done and do a soft opening, potentially sometime late April, early May, but nothing really official yet until we get everything sorted out. And we're not even quite sure about the parking yet. We just have to work through all that stuff. There are trails right now that are being worked on to get people out. It's going to be multi-use trails, all natural surface, all dirt trails. Right now there are some gravel access roads that people can use. In the meanwhile, while those trails are getting worked out, once we get parking open and it's officially open to the public. Working on signage right now, maps to get things out there so people, when they show up, they know where they are and where they're going. And but this place is just an amazingly beautiful place. It really is. It's spring ephemeral city out there. And some of the hugest patches of trout lilies that I've seen in a long time. We're not putting trails to those places because we don't need people stomping through them and spreading wavy leaf on their pants legs while they go. So we're not putting trails in some of those places, but I'm looking forward to this property being open to the public and for people being able to go in and take a look at it. I think it's going to be a great birding spot. I think it's going to be a great plant watching spot, and no bears yet that I've seen. I saw that in there, but there are deer, and Kerry did mention it that I think the reason that there are so many great plants there and so many good orchids is that the place has been heavily hunted throughout the years. There are deer stands everywhere, and without that hunting, probably deer pressure is gonna start ramping up. So that's being talked about as well, but I don't want to talk about that anymore because there's nothing certain for any of that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to you guys being able to get out there and see this.
Okay, I think we've got some other hands up. Was Janet first? Okay, Janet, go for it.
Okay, so I just want to get a little bit more reassurance about asphalt. You know, several of our relatively new stream valley parks and everything, they go in there and they take the whole stream valley and they make an asphalt trail there that takes up most of the space. And anyway, I'm hoping with this one, it's going to stay mostly natural surface trails and not a lot of those, 14-foot wide things that are supposedly multi-use trails. And can we keep some places that don't have bicycles? I don't know.
Well,
You guys
I
want to
will say,
reply?
it is going to be a natural surface trail system. There is going to be an accessible loop that is also going to be built into it. We have a very large user base of our park systems, so we have to be mindful of that. And, there are folks who do need those paved surfaces and their guidelines for the widths to ensure that there's there's safety built in and people can pass by and all of that. So those are all built into our design considerations that our trail planners and other planners do. But part of the parking lot situation is going to be a natural surface parking lot, but we've got to also work with state highways to get some turn lanes and signage up to make sure that it's safe for folks to get into those areas. And I know there's a lot of excitement to get in to this park, and I see those questions popping up in the chat. But for now, it's going to be very limited access until we have those accessible parking spaces and everything. And then also trying to determine where some of those invasive patches are and where we can prevent some of the spread of those species.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. That's super exciting. It looks fabulous. I see someone kind of asked one of my questions in the chat about, is there any kind of effort to maybe have boot washing stations or something so that you can at least reduce the load? And I will support that it's not the bikes with the wavy grass, wavy basket grass. I take my dog for a walk, and during that season when the seeds are all sticky, oh my gosh, it's a nightmare. So it's clinging to his legs. It's just like he can come home completely covered. And by the way, Dom, my dog's name is also Chewy, so that's funny.
Wonderful.
It's actually Chewbacca Underfoot Mayhem. That's his show name. So you get an idea. Anyway, so is the just in terms of the invasives, is the managed hunting going to continue? Those aren't really invasives, but the deer problem, which leads to invasives and all that, are they going to keep with the hunting? You know, can you keep that up? While we all love this new space, you know, right, all this added usage is going to come with there's going to be a cost. So how can you, what are you doing to try to keep that down? That's basically it. Thanks.
I can speak to that a little bit if it's okay. We've talked about it, and I have brought it to the attention of our person who manages the deer hunting properties and managed hunts for Prince George's County parks. And this is a discussion that is going to have to happen as far as trying to keep the deer pressure down. So it is being discussed, but nothing has, just like right now with all these plans, nothing, not everything is set in stone just as of yet. And but they know that this is something that probably needs to be discussed heavily and work out something.
Thanks, Chris. I'll just add, deer management will be necessary moving forward, and we'll look into the efficacy of like boot washing stations, as part of our planning and stewardship of this property.
Sounds like a good idea. Okay, Jorah.
Well, this is really very cool. I'm glad I was able to come to this talk. And I'm just wondering, I come from a landscape architecture background, and I'm really interested in learning more about the process of trail planning and choosing the routes and also mapping. And I was just wondering how can a person who doesn't work for the Parks Department learn more about the process that's going on, just because I'm really interested in how it works and how you make those decisions.
Oh, thanks, Jorah. Give me or Kerry a call, and we'll put you in contact with our trail planners at the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll also qualify, we're having some changes. So Ranger Chris Garrett is now our Natural Surface Trails Manager. So that's going to be a program that's starting up. I think you're going to be getting somebody hired under you too. So you're going to have staff as well. And then in addition, we're going to be trying to build out our web presence a little bit more because the information that we have on the web on the Department of Parks and Recreation site doesn't have a lot of information. But we have some amazing trail planners. They're currently working on some more of that open street mapping to push out to some of the popular programs like All Trails and Gaia and all of that to get more of our trails into those systems. So a lot more is documented and everything. So we're excited about that.
Anna is wondering about who she would need to speak with to possibly organize some forest bathing walks.
Anna, you can reach out to me. Again, we're going to be limiting a lot of the groups going in there until we get everything finished up. But feel free to reach out to me.
And then Angela asks, where do you see the biggest need for new staff?
Well, I can answer. I'm new staff. I'm new as of like 2 months now.
Oh, good.
And one of my jobs is going to be writing vegetation management plans for properties like this and all of that. And as Dom alluded to towards the end of the talk about having you guys be our eyes and our ears in our different parks, it's really, really helpful. There's so many more of you out there, and letting us know where, especially like plant focused folks, letting us know where some of these early detection invasive species are, or you notice some high quality habitats that might need some management. For those of you who visit certain areas all the time, when you first start seeing wavy leaf come in there, if you could let me know, that's really, really helpful, because we have a greater chance of success to catch those things early. But with over 500 parcels and close to 30,000 acres, there's no way we can get to all those places and do all the things that we want to do. But there's that. And as far as the new trail stuff, I'll kick that over to Chris in terms of what he's doing on the trails side. So
We always need strong backs. Right now, we're just for the National Surface Trails for Prince George's County. It's a new program. Rangers have always managed the trails in the county, but now there's going to be a dedicated team to it, and we'll see how it goes. This is a new thing to have a dedicated team. I've been doing it for 20 years, but yeah, we'll see. As far as new staff, I don't know, but it's always nice to have volunteers.
Yep. Yes, volunteers. I'll add, I mean, I think additional staff, as Kerry alluded to, we have a lot of acreage, and I think, if the more like resource land managers that we can bring on board, and sort of emphasizing programs like invasive management, deer management, will go a long way. I think the old paradigm, used to be with most park jurisdictions, you acquire parkland and just watch the trees grow, and there's really not much that you need to do. That has totally shifted with climate change, with the droughts that we're getting, with all of the invasive species that are coming along. Bringing on more staff to sort of like actively manage our parks, I think, is something we really need to focus on moving forward.
Thanks, and I'll answer a little bit more a question by Catherine Plaisant about how to report invasive species. You can use EDMAPS, which is the basis for Maiden. The person who runs EDMAPS, Early Detection Distribution Mapping System, he decided he didn't want all these regional apps, so he just kind of canceled those, and you just have to sign up under the umbrella group of early EDMAPs, basically. There's an article in Marylandica a few issues back if you want to read about it. But you can also use iNaturalist. They share data. So if you really only want to use iNaturalist, you can do that. It's just if you do report it through EDMAPs, they have a process where it gets sent out to expert verifiers who will verify it. So it's it is totally focused on invasive species, basically. That's the difference. So that's a more direct way. And I do it when I'm out. I still use EDMAPs for that kind of stuff usually. So whatever way works for you, just report it, I guess is the best way to do it. I have a quick question. There was a really cool brochure that was in the PowerPoint about natural areas. Is that, I actually don't think I knew about that, and I'm embarrassed because I should. Do you know what I'm talking about? You used a few pages of it in your talk, and I would love to know how to get copies and maybe, let other members know how to get a copy, because I think it looked really awesome for the few pages that I saw. Do you know what I'm talking about, Kerry and Dom?
do you remember, was it the best natural areas or?
Like that. Yeah, I think that was it.
Okay, yeah, that's on the Montgomery side. So Dom.
Yeah, I can send you PDF copies of those documents.
Okay, so there's not a Prince George's version?
Kerry put together like under construction image. Yeah, that's what we want to be doing on the Prince George's County side.
Excellent. That's wonderful. All right, thank you. Okay, Judy.
I want to add on to what you were saying about EdMaps and iNaturalist. If you put an invasive plant report into EdMaps, it works better than if you put it into iNaturalist, because iNaturalist goes through a screen before it gets into EdMaps. But again, if you don't want to learn another app, just put it in iNaturalist.
Lisa, please.
Chris will be working, once he hires his rest of his trail crew and his outreach person,
Mhm.
they're going to be working on advertising hikes at some of the natural areas to get more people to know more about the conservation and natural areas. So people should be on the lookout for that. It'll probably be posted on the Facebook page of PG Nature. That's where they post a lot of the things on Facebook's PG Nature. Also, I don't know if they would also cross post with Kerry's division. Probably. But I know that we talked about that. That would be a good introduction for a lot of people to learn about these different areas.
Good point. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you, Dom and Kerry, for an excellent talk. Really, it's perfect timing too to make us all want to run outside and go look at everything, if we haven't been already, which we have been. So thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us tonight, and come back next month.